If you've been on this channel for a while, you might actually be aware that I've made pretty much this exact video about 8 months ago when talking about LeBron winning his 4th championship ring versus the Miami Heat. I'm bringing this video back now because with the playoffs heading in soon and the Lakers being in an interesting situation, I want to talk about what yet another ring would do for LeBron's legacy. When I say same video, like literally it's the same words in the thumbnail in the same title, except it says 5th instead of 4th now. Like, very much the same conversation, just again. This video is exactly what it sounds like. Just like last time, it's going to be me discussing what another championship does for LeBron's legacy, except this time there are very different contexts from the Lakers this year versus last. Last time, I said that another championship really does not move the needle for LeBron all that significantly, but this time around, the circumstances are very different. The Lakers are currently the 7th seed in the West. They have been injured all year, have very little room to build chemistry before the playoffs start. They're likely in the play-in tournament, and they're going to be towards the bottom of the West that has a lot of very good teams. And from these different circumstances, the actual value, quote unquote, of the ring that he could get this year is a good bit higher than the ring he got last year, so I think the context make this conversation rather different. So let's talk about the Lakers, LeBron, and what a 5th championship does for his legacy. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. If you like basketball talk and basketball in general, subscribe to this channel for consistent videos like that. Also drop a like on this video if you enjoy it, that is much appreciated. The Lakers, unlike last year, are in a very tough spot. Going into the playoffs last year, the Lakers were completely healthy and a top seed in their conference with really well-built chemistry. This year, they're the 7th seed, potentially dropping even lower, although potentially dropping, or not dropping, going up a little higher, but likely to be in the play-in tournament, which is already a difficult circumstance. Then you add on to it that LeBron and AD have been injured in and out of lineups all year to where they have barely played together this year. Their new additions like Dennis Schroeder have not been able to build proper chemistry with those guys. And because of being a lower seed, they're pretty much going to get a contender in round 1. And with that being how it is, they're going to keep getting contenders along their way to the finals if they do make it. These circumstances present a lot of hurdles for the Lakers, a lot of adversity, and with adversity comes increased value in a championship. The more difficult the road to get a title is, the bigger impact that ring will actually have in its value, and in turn how much that ring impacts your legacy. For example of this, look at 2016 for LeBron versus 2018 for Kevin Durant. That 2016 ring was very difficult for the Cavs to get. The 2018 ring for Kevin Durant, or the 2017 ring is an even better example, not really all that difficult, not much adversity there. The adversity faced along the way towards a championship matters quite a bit in terms of how that championship is remembered and how impactful it is on a legacy, and LeBron and the Lakers are facing a ton of adversity this year. Let's say they face the Phoenix Suns in round 1 this year, a team that some people might dismiss, but to me is a legitimate contender, or at the very least on the borderline. And sure, under most circumstances, the Lakers should not have much issue with a team like this, but being that they have been injured all year and have very little chemistry and will likely just come out of a play-in tournament while the Suns have been resting, those circumstances are going to make things very different and give the Suns quite a big edge, while also, of course, having home court advantage. Then, they will very likely have the Los Angeles Clippers in round 2. Now, I realize that the Clippers are a meme and no one actually gives them any credit, but with the improvements they've made this year, especially with the addition of Serge Ibaka and Rajon Rondo, I think this team is quite a bit more threatening than what they were last year, and even if they did face the Lakers last year instead of losing after blowing a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets, I still think think they could have given the Lakers quite a fight, and they're better this year, and again, the Lakers are going to be coming out of rather difficult circumstances. Then, if they beat the Clippers, they have one of the Jazz, Nuggets, or maybe the Dallas Mavericks, and assuming it's one of the Jazz or the Nuggets, I think both of those teams are still in the contender category. Yes, I am still considering the Nuggets in that category, even with Jamal Murray out this year, because Michael Porter Jr. has stepped up in his place, and he really wasn't that impactful back in 2020, so it's almost like they just substituted Murray for Porter, and I think that's going to make them still a very, very threatening team. But let's say they have made it to the finals now. Most likely, they're going to be facing the Brooklyn Nets in the finals, a team that has two superstars, a very close to superstar caliber player in Kyrie Irving based on my own definition of superstar, a very good supporting cast, solid enough coaching. This team is a fucking super team. We all know it. This team is very, very, very good, and for most people, the title favorite. So let's just say the Lakers have come out of what is likely 3, at least 6, possibly 7-game series after winning the play-in tournament, and all 3 of those teams being pretty much contender-level teams. Then they have to face the Nets in the finals. This year's likely Eastern Conference champion, the Nets, is quite a bit better than last year's Eastern Conference champion. Now, no knock on the Heat. They were very impressive and actually put up a better fight than many people expected, but when people realized that the finals matchup last year was going to be the Lakers versus the Heat, the consensus opinion was, well, congratulations to the Lakers on being the 2020 champions. Now, the Heat actually gave up a better fight than expected, but that did end up being true. If the Lakers end up playing this year's Nets completely healthy, that's not going to be the mindset. The mindset is not going to be congrats to the Lakers on the 2021 championship. Absolutely not. It's not going to be a cakewalk by any means. But then you bring in that previous context of the previous 3 rounds as well as the play-in tournament, and you now have a team that has beaten 3 contenders along the way to facing the Nets in the finals. Now imagine after that happens, the Lakers fucking win. Look, I have been pretty firm in my belief that Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time, though I have no qualm with you if you disagree with that and think it is LeBron. If you think it's someone else, you're dumb. But if you think it's one of those two, I completely understand that. I've also been on the record saying it's pretty close. Like I said, perfectly okay if you think LeBron is the GOAT. Some people are going to read the title or the thumbnail of this video and be like, LeBron was already the GOAT, so he doesn't really need to be officially the GOAT. And I understand that. Really, this is just my point of view on everything. That's kind of what all these fucking videos are. But, you know, it depends on the person. But with me thinking that it's pretty close, add on to it the possibly best championship run ever, if not that one that's the very least in the top 10 or 15 to LeBron's already ridiculous resume. Basically just add another 2016 type thing to his resume. He's probably the GOAT then. Like, what else can I say? He's probably the GOAT. That pushes the needle for me, and LeBron and Michael Jordan are going to be switching spots in my top 5 players of all time. So if the Lakers and LeBron make this run, LeBron presumably does some LeBron shit, which is to say he puts up ridiculous numbers and has incredible moments and likely wins Finals MVP. All that happens. This is one of the best playoff runs ever, and it makes LeBron the GOAT for me. Then add on to it that his eventual all-time numbers are going to be just fucking absurd because of the longevity that he's going to have. And by the time he retires, I'm just going to have to give it to LeBron at that point. Like, there's no denying it to me, from my point of view. I could still understand a little bit holding out that it's Jordan, but at that point, for me at least, it's going to be pretty obvious who the greatest player of all time is. Now, how likely is it that the scenario that I just proposed actually ends up happening? Not very high. The Lakers are somehow walking into the playoffs this year as an underdog just because of how poor their circumstances have been all season and what they're walking into. So I think they likely lose somewhere on that path even before they get to the finals in the first place. But if it does, LeBron's the GOAT to me. So yeah. That's what I think a 5th ring does for LeBron's legacy. To many of you, he's already the fucking GOAT, so this video is pointless. If anything, it just makes his case bigger for you guys. But for me, this would be what does it. So yeah. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That's the end of this video. Please be sure to like, subscribe for NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.